Hey, what's the matter, you?
There you go.
All right. Today I'm going to be discussing the Lit Library. It's a front end library, which is like your user interface and user experience on like websites and web components made easy. If you like this talk, please subscribe and hit the like button. So this is an oversimplification. I'm just going to be doing an overview of some web basics. The web is like a server client model. So as you can see in the picture, you have a web server that's uh, gets a request from these PCs and it answers with a response. The HTTP and HTTPS, those are hypertext transfer protocol, and the secure version, they communicate via text. What happens is the web browser gets that and it parses it, which means it separates it out, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it creates the document object model and the CSS object model, just cascading style sheets. Your browsers are there on the picture there. You have your Edge and your Chrome and your Firefox. And the other picture is a representation of the document object model. It shows you the different nodes. You have a root node, which is the HTML. And then you have head and body. And they get styles from the CSS object model. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Here we'll have an example. This is just a very basic page, and it would be represented in your browser as that picture on the right with the hello world and the bird. So if you had a page called hello world.html and you copied and pasted this code in it, and you had a picture in that same folder, and you double clicked on it, your computer would open it up in a browser, and it would look just like that, hello world with the bird and paragraph goes here text. So
to be clear, it would represent the picture as the visual part, and behind the scenes, it's representing it as that document object model, that in-memory representation of that tree view of the HTML.
Right. So the browser would read that text, and then it would create the document object model, and you would get the user interface shown to you because the browser would show the image and the other text in the proper spacing and the proper place. All right, so the doc type is just at the very top there. You're seeing it tells the browser that it's HTML5. The HTML tag is the root element, and that was shown in that tree picture and then you have your head, which is like a control center. There's things in it like meta tags and title tags. You could have things like link tags that go to your style sheets, and you could have scripts in there. It's the control center. And then you have the body tag, which is your main content. You can see you have a heading as a hello world, an image, which shows the source, which is tells the browser where it's located. I just put the name there because that means it's in the same folder. It's right there. It's accessible. You would have to put the exact location of it if it was somewhere else. Then you have your paragraph tag, and then you see the closing tags like the body and the HTML. That's what that / body and HTML mean.
And what is the meta tag? What do you mean by a meta tag?
Meta tag is about it's an information. Meta is data about data, information about data. So your character set,
right?
Say again?
I just said extra information about the document.
Right.
One other way to think about the head is like a header. So it's the document header, which obviously in this case has the title and it has some metadata.
Right.
Just for those people listening, Christian and Mike do this for a living, and Joe has no clue of concept because he does something totally different. So he would be the newbie in this situation.
So this is just some information about web components. Web components, they use the DOM, so that the DOM API is a programming interface. It's an API. It is a bridge. That's what APIs are. They bridge you to the application. The DOM API allows JavaScript to add, delete, and manipulate the DOM. Web components are a part of the web API. The browser-based capabilities. Web components are powerful because they are a native browser feature, meaning they work everywhere in every framework without special tooling. So you could make a web component and put it in a React project, which is a very popular framework for the web front end for user interfaces. There's other ones that other companies use. There's a lot of frameworks. They could be used anywhere and it wouldn't affect anything and it would work right away because it's native to the browser. The web APIs are native to every browser. Web components are created with JavaScript and added to the DOM. Web components allow you to create reusable custom HTML elements. So as you can see, I made my component tag, and that would be like those other tags, and it's a self-contained. It can have functionality. It can have images, data. It can call other, like a database, and bring in things, and so it's basically like its own little self-contained unit.
Right. So the way to think about this is a framework. This is like a framework or a toolkit or a set of patterns, etc., to allow you to create your own components, your own HTML elements, and they get attached to the DOM.
Yeah.
You're going to go into this further, so I'm not going to stop the flow of this with questions.
Okay.
Yeah, probably be good to wait and see an example.
Yes, that's
All right.
what I was going to ask for.
So we got a custom element. This is just an example of that. And it uses the class syntax. And those who are familiar with program would know, like, classes inheritance is a big part of it. And as you can see where it says extend HTML element, that's like the primary element of HTML. It's like the HTML, it's inheriting all the things that come along with that. And then you're making your own. You're extending it. It's like a blueprint. A class is like a blueprint so that you can have many objects made. It's like a factory. It's going to pump out the objects. You have a constructor, which is called, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I'm just going to breeze over it. That's whenever you call the class, the constructor is automatically called, and super is its parent. So that would be the HTML element class. And then what it does is creates a shadow DOM, and it attaches it to this custom element, and that's what isolates it. That's what keeps it isolated from the rest of the DOM. Anything you do in there won't affect the rest of the DOM, and the rest of the DOM won't affect it. Connected callback is just a life cycle. These things, as you connect the tag to the body or to the DOM, that's going to get called immediately. So a lot of setup stuff would be put into that life cycle function. A function does something when it's called. So this gets called when it gets connected to the DOM. It creates this shadow inner HTML, it creates that. And then moving down, custom element.define is what connects it to it registers the custom element to the browser so that it knows about it. It knows what to do. You have to put a hyphen there. So it's called my component. And then the my component is the name of the class up top. So it's just telling you when. And then as you can see, I put body, I put my three of them in the example there. I put body, my component, and then if that was how it would be represented in a picture, it would say, hello, this is a web component, and it's blue. And I did it 3 times. Any questions?
Right.
Serious?
So the way to think about this, let's say there's some existing HTML, but you don't think it's fancy enough. Like there's buttons, or let's say you wanted a button, but you wanted the button to have this really, say, fancy animation, or let's just say do a simple one, say an image. It was a bird image, but let's say you want the bird image to spin around if they click on it or something crazy like that. So this would allow you to create your own super image or my image as an HTML element that does the things you want it to do.
Right. Yep. And then it also allows it, you can use many of them. It automatically, and then they're all separate from one another. So you could have some doing some functionality or some activity and others doing other activities. And then it takes away a lot of the boilerplate code, which is like code that you have to repeat. The object of programming is to do it once and not repeat yourself.
Right. So this is programming. I mean, this is basically patterns for programming in JavaScript to create these custom elements. But let me ask you a question. There probably are like libraries, popular libraries where people have already done this that you can reuse, right?
Yeah, that's what lit is.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
Okay, so now we're going to get into some discussion about the custom elements. They let you define your own HTML tags with built-in behavior, the foundation of every other piece builds on. So how it works, you register a new tag. This one's called user card. It's backed by a JS class. I showed you that before. That's what that class was. They're kind of like Lego pieces. See how you can make your own? It has user cards in the center there of the Lego piece. The life cycle hooks fire automatically, like connected, disconnected, attribute, changed, and then behaves like any native HTML element, usable in any framework or none at all. So now I'm just telling you a little bit more about what these custom elements are. A big part of it is that shadow DOM that it creates. And as you can see in the picture there, you have your regular document object model, and then you have your shadow root model, which is separate. See how it's isolated, it's separated. Gives a component its own protected DOM subtree. Styles and markup stop leaking in either direction. Attaches a scope shadow root inside the custom element. CSS defined outside can't reach in, and internal CSS can't reach out. Solves the classic problem, a global style sheet, breaking a widget look. So by having that separation, you're protecting it. I mean, it also isolates the also functions too. So that, you know, there's other things that it isolates, not just styles. Here's just a little bit more information. Another big part of it is what they call templates and slots. This template tag, you'll see it on the bottom, is important. So I'm just going to keep reading here. Keeps a component reusable instead of rigid by letting consumers pass in their own content. So it's dynamic. This template defines inert markup that only renders when the JavaScript activates it. So even if you put that in your regular HTML thing, it won't display it. And then you have a slot, which is another tag. It marks the placeholder inside the shadow DOM for outside content. And then you're allowed to pass stuff into those. Allows you to pass new content in and render dynamic user interfaces. So this is an important part of any, like something like React or these components or modular frameworks, is that you can always pass things in and modify them on the fly. If a user interacts in a certain way, clicks a button, does whatever, and it can go out, grab information from somewhere, pull it into your component, and change it on the fly. Change the color, the look, the style, the size, anything you could think of.
All right. So let's say you had a business card component, and that business card, obviously you don't want to hard code somebody's name and address and this and that. So you're saying you would create a template for your business card where some of it's the look and feel, like bold this, make this in blue, and some of it's this slots, and each slot you would say this is the slot for the name, this is the slot for the address. So this allows you to create HTML components that are very flexible.
Right. And those are inside those web components.
interesting.
All right, and here's just a quick example of lit, how it looks. So we're off of now web components. Now we're going on to the lit library, and lit does things a little bit different. It's modern, and it uses a bundler, which a bundler is something that minimizes your project. Once your project starts to get too big, a bundler is good because it'll also, like, TypeScript will turn into JavaScript. TypeScript is a popular way to create static types like a string or a number and tell the IDE what to do. Your IDE is like your development environment, and then that becomes JavaScript. So the bundlers will change it into JavaScript and put it in get it ready for your website, ready for your
So this is important for them to know. So lit is a library Web Components is a W3C standard. So the W3C is the World Wide Web Consortium, and they created a standard called Web Components, which is basically how you create custom tags or custom HTML elements. And Lit took that and said, we like that, and basically created a whole bunch of custom ones that you could just reuse.
Right, and it took away a lot of also it obfuscated some of the boilerplate stuff that so you don't have to repeat. It made things a lot easier, and that's usually what happens over the lifespan of something. Something will come out, someone adds a library on top of it that makes it easier and more declarative. So you don't have to know exactly all of the implementation details.
Gotcha.
Is AI making this lit? Is AI involved in doing this lit?
No. Lit was written by people, but that's not to say you can't use AI to write Lit.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah, you could tell AI, I want you to use the Lit library.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. When you're importing, so when you're importing these things from the Lit, when you install Lit in your project and it puts files in there, and then this is basically these functions that are in these files. And that's how you import them. And the bundler will also maps out where these things are in your project, and it brings them into this. So now that it brings it in, you have a custom element. It says my component. This registers this class as a custom element. Now before, when we were talking about custom elements in web components, it was on the bottom and it used a define function. So this just made it a little declarative statement saying custom elements my component. Now they export a class. It does a similar thing, except it extends lit element, and lit element just extends that HTML element from before. It's using it's a very small library. And it uses the web components library, but it's just adding some features. So it's extending its own class. All right. And it adds some things to try and simplify it and make it a little cleaner and better. You have defined scope styles. This is your cascading style sheet. It calls some CSX function with that and applies it to the thing. And then it has a render function, and then it returns an HTML function that'll render that, returns the component rendered HTML tag template. As you can see, it's that same exact thing, but it's a little bit smaller and more concise. Right? Okay.
Yep.
Now we're going to have a few discussions about this. A lightweight library that strips the boilerplate out of native web components while staying 100% standards-based. A thin layer on top of custom elements, shadow DOM, and templates, not a replacement for them. Compiles down to real custom elements, so there's no separate framework engine like React. There's nothing added. There's not another step. There's not more processing going on. It's very simple and native. It's backed by Google and powers production design systems like Material Web, which is like Google's version of using the Lit and using web component. All right. So
now, when you say backed by Google, you're saying Google is the developer of this library?
They didn't make web components. They probably contributed.
No, they didn't make web components. Did they make Lit?
No, but Lit like works for them. They're like a sub part of Lit. Manages a lot of their component libraries and uses Lit to make those libraries.
Okay.
So, and the reason that Google is doing that is because it can be used in any framework. Google has their own framework called Angular. Angular is a very popular front end framework that uses it's this JavaScript, but it uses it in such a way that's different. They're trying to replace a lot of that stuff and have stuff that can be used anywhere, which is what those web components do, and Lit does. That's why I got interested in Lit, and because it can be used anywhere, and it's a web standard. You want to keep with those, and there's less dependencies. Like, I don't want my projects get bloated with dependencies. This doesn't really have any, or very few. All right, so Lit element, it's a base class that handles the repetitive parts of defining a custom element. So the same behavior takes less code. That's the point of it. It extends lit element instead of HTML element, which we saw before, which is what web components do, to get sensible defaults out of the box. They have something called a decorator at property, marks reactive state. So it has state is important. It tells you where how something is at that current time. Like it could be a number, it could be a text, it could be anything, and then the state of it is what that value is at that time. And then when that state changes, it'll re-render just that tiny little piece of the document object model or that shadow DOM. Lifecycle hooks like first updated, replace manual, connected callback, bookkeeping. So basically, the point of the lit is that it's reducing the amount of code, right? I mean, it's doing the same thing. It's making it simpler, and it also adds some beneficial behaviors and stuff.
And just so everybody knows, I mean, this is a typical sort of technology life cycle. There's hundreds and hundreds of these libraries that allow you to create custom DOM things, custom HTML, like React is one of the most popular ones, Angular. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. Right. But web components is then the standards body saying, okay, we looked at what everybody's done. Now we're going to try to standardize it. And what I think Christian is saying now, the big boys are starting to say, okay, instead of using our own implementation, let's all fall in behind this standard so that everybody will do it the same way.
And then Lit just put a small wrapper on that and added some functionality and some things that, so you don't have to write the same code. If you just stuck with web components, you'd be writing a lot of JavaScript and you would be repeating. You could do it, but it would just be a lot more code. So what they tried to do was simplifying it by adding this wrapper and making certain functionalities available through it. Lit leans directly on Shadow DOM for style isolation and gives you a clean syntax for writing it. The CSS tag tempo literate scopes styles to the component automatically. No long naming conventions needed to avoid collisions. Shadow DOM has a private namespace. Styles shipped inside the component itself, so it's portable with no extra CSS. The importance of that is that it's isolated, and encapsulation is an important thing, and that it's encapsulated. It doesn't get affected by other things unless it allows it. There's only a few more slides left, so it's not too much longer.
What's the picture? Why is that picture there?
It's fenced in. So encapsulation and being private is like the idea of the fence.
That represents the shadow DOM. So basically what it's saying is that if you think of a document as this big tree of stuff, it's giving you your own little area, your own little backyard that you can mess around with, and it won't affect the rest of it.
Right.
Now, the reason why that's important is it used to be in the old days is rendering would render the whole tree every time, but that can be slow. So in order to speed things up, you may just want to render just the parts of things that change. So that's a big part of performance nowadays is how do you speed things up?
Right. And then just lastly here, this is the Lit HTML templates. Templates describe what the user interface should look like. Lit effectively updates only the parts that changed. The HTML tag template literal replaces manual DOM manipulation. That was that HTML function that had the text inside it. It knows how to parse that and creates that. That's what that tag template is. Native slots still work exactly as it does in plain web components. Lit tracks bindings and patches just the changed DOM. No virtual DOM diffing required like React. So React had a similar idea, but it was using its own virtual DOM. Instead of this creates a shadow DOM, what React would do was have its own DOM, and it would compare the actual DOM versus its virtual DOM, and then change only what it thought necessary.
So for those who don't know, React is a very popular web framework created by Facebook.
And then lastly, this is more to come in the future. I'm going to be building a project with this because I'm going to replace my current business website with it. And WebAwesome is another thing that it took that Lit just another step further, and they built a open source library of designed, highly customizable UI components based on lit.
Can you show us some of the components? Like jump out to the web real quick and show
Yeah,
us.
that's what I'm going to do next. I'll show you some web awesome stuff for a second. I'm going to hop out
Web
here.
awesome. Web awesome.
If we just do web awesome and come here, we go to components. So this just takes it a farther and makes a bunch of components. So I'll say, well, we'll just do the simplest one, an accordion.
So they have like a gallery that shows a bunch of them.
Yeah, that was what I was on. So here's a gallery of them, and you know, there's a bunch of different ones. There's buttons, carousel, cards. Cards kind of a cool one. But so like if you made a card, you could put this on your website just by you'd copy this code in here, right? You'd obviously need the picture, and then you'd pop that into your thing, and this is a lit, and it's based on lit, and this is a component you could add over and over and have obviously different data in each card. But this is an example of different, like what people can do with cards. If you like you can make
so a card can have video, can have images. Cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, and that's the next step, is that you'll have these things that are, and then I can build a site relatively quick using.
So let's just look at some of the overview first. What do they have? So they have dialogues, date pickers.
Right.
Let's see, go on down. Let's see what else they got.
So Chris, what you're saying is that each one of these cards is a program that you can, instead of having to write the program, you can use this as like almost a shortcut, since it's already been done while we do it.
Yes, yeah. It's sort of like, it's in order to improve the speed, in order to increase the speed of you developing a site, you'd be dropping these pre-made components into the thing and then making the layout a certain way, and then it just works, right?
Oh, very cool.
You tweak it with you have to tweak them and make them your own, but you have the foundation there. You have it pre-done. And then I just wanted to quickly show you just a real quick example of, so this is just a regular web component, right? I put it twice here. You could see I have the developer window open on the side here. You can see I did demo card twice, right? And I made these web components. And these web components, that's the shadow root that we were talking about before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have your slot. So now, when I click on this, see how it changed the text in there? So I dynamically change the text and change the color, just to show you, just as a quick example of what a web component is. And then see how this is separated. And it made another object. That class made a separate object here by me putting that other tag right here. You see that? Demo card. And then I just had a quick short demo of it's the same exact thing, but done in lit. And you see how it's changing the text and changing I put that 3 times here. I put demo card instead of twice. I did, and it has this very similar with the slot. And anyway.
So when you click it, what's happening?
It's changing. The reason the shape is changing because is the text inside is changing. So I'm updating the text. Like if I refresh it, it goes back, right? Now, this is the DOM, right? It created the DOM. Now I'm manipulating. I'm changing it I just changed it by clicking on it, right? Changed the color and it changed the text. It went from default content is nothing is passed in, and now I passed in this content. When I click on it, the content's changing. The number's changing, and see?
All right. But in the code, it must have the handler that does the click me, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like in your regular thing. That's all, just as a quick demo. And that's basically it for today. I just wanted to show that because I'm interested in trying to develop more quickly. And, this is only the front end. Obviously, you still need a back end to have a database and other functionality, but I just think it's a cool library, and there's more to come. There'll be another part to it.
Need to be silly, but when you say the front end and the back end, so when you say this is just the front end,
correct?
Right. It's the user interface.
The user interface, right? And the back end would be where it's not exposed to the client. It's the back end code is on the server, and it's what when you make a call. Let's say you fetch data from the front end. You click on the button. You say fetch name, social security number, blah blah blah. It goes out to the database and gets the information, and then sends it back to you in a response.
Right.
I see.
Right. So backend usually means either the web server, which is fetching the pages, or a database,
Right.
which is getting like the customer information and stuff like that. That's usually what people mean by the backend.
Arrivederci.